So, it's time to make another Iceberg video. And today's topic is going to be on Nintendo. Just Nintendo as a whole company. So I've done one that's just based upon Mario, but this time this is just Nintendo as a whole. So there will be some stuff on Mario, but also some stuff on other Nintendo franchises, and also some stuff on just Nintendo as a company. So yeah, of course, we're not going to be going through every single detail on this iceberg, only my favourite ones that we are going to be taking a look at, and obviously I'm sure you all know the iceberg structure, the well-known and popular facts at the top, and more obscure, dark, and mysterious points towards the bottom of the iceberg. So yeah, let's get straight into this. Mario. I mean, do I really need to explain what Mario is? I mean, it's what my channel's based off of. Donkey Kong. Everyone's favourite monkey. Donkey Kong started off in 1981 in the arcade, where he captured Mario's then girlfriend Pauline. Zelda. Another best-selling game from Nintendo. This game franchise is where Link goes on an adventure to rescue Princess Zelda from Ganondorf. Zelda's most popular games include Wind Waker, Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, and Breath of the Wild. Pokemon. A really popular RPG style game where you get to train these creatures called Pokemon to fight against other Pokemon. They also have a TV anime show as well. The most popular Pokemon include Pikachu, Eevee, Snorlax, Moltres, and Greninja. Home consoles. Nintendo has released 7 main home consoles at the time of recording. The Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64, the Nintendo GameCube, the Nintendo Wii, the Nintendo Wii U, and the Nintendo Switch. Handheld consoles. Nintendo has released a lot of portable consoles as well, including the Nintendo Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS, and the Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo Famicom. It is a Japanese name for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Famicom is short for Family Computer, and the system looks a bit different as well. Satoru Iwata. This is the name of the Nintendo President of Japan, succeeding Hiroshi Yamauchi in 2002 until he sadly passed away in 2015. Hiroshi Yamauchi. This is the name of the Nintendo President of Japan from 1949 to 2002, and he is, at the time of recording, the longest serving President of Nintendo of Japan. And he was the man that took a lot of risks with Nintendo, and he's the reason why Nintendo is where it is now. Reggie Fils-Aimé. The name of the Nintendo President of America from 2006 to 2019. Shigeru Miyamoto. The name of the creator of many famous Nintendo IPs, such as Mario, Donkey Kong, and Zelda. He is still, at the time of recording, working for Nintendo since he joined in 1977. Kirby. An adorable game franchise where a cute pink creature called Kirby goes on an adventure. Doug Bowser. The current president of Nintendo of America at the time of recording. And I think it's such a hilarious coincidence that the name of the president of Nintendo is Bowser, who is the name of Mario's worst enemy. I just find it so funny. They even put a pun on Bowser's name in a Nintendo Direct, which I absolutely love. Fourth place ending in Mario Kart 64. This is a cutscene that you'll see after finishing in 4th place in a Mario Grand Prix in Mario Kart 64. It shows your character watching the top 3 getting a trophy, but your character drives off feeling really depressed before a bob-omb hits the character and blows you up. It's quite a sad and depressing scene in Mario Kart, but at least it isn't as bad as Mario Kart Super Circuit's 4th place ending, where the top 3 podium literally falls on top of you and squashes you. Nintendo Game & Watch. This is the name of the first handheld system Nintendo made. The story goes, as Gunpei Yokoi was on the train on the way back home from work, he saw somebody playing on a calculator, and that gave him the idea to create the Nintendo Game & Watch. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. During the 16-bit console wars between the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, Sega came up with a campaign to try and compete with Nintendo, and the slogan for one of their adverts at the Sega Genesis was, Genesis does what Nintendo don't, in an attempt to try to make people buy a Sega Genesis over a Super Nintendo. Power Glove. This was an add-on accessory for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was a glove that the player can put on, and you can tilt your hand to do various arm movements to control the characters on screen. It is notorious for being really defective and very irresponsive. and it ended up being a commercial failure. Now you're playing with power. This was the slogan for one of the adverts from the Nintendo Entertainment System. Nintendo 64 DD. This is an add-on accessory to the Nintendo 64, and it allowed the N64 to run on floppy disks. However, it was a commercial failure and it didn't make its way out of Japan. Toccata Song. This is a simple 19-note melody that a Nintendo sound designer, Kazumi Toccata, inserts subtly into many Nintendo games as an Easter egg in most titles that he works on. This is what the song sounds like. Joy-Con drift. This is an unwanted feature in the Nintendo Switch, where sometimes the Joy-Cons on the Switch's calibrations mess up and drags without the players actually touching it. Missing No. This is a really famous glitch in the game Pokemon Red and Blue. Encountering Missing No, which is a glitched out Pokemon, causes an increase in the number of items in the 6th entry of the player's inventory by 128. Color Game TV. This was the first ever Nintendo console. It came out in 1977 and it was a Pong-type console in the first generation of video games. The meaning of the name Nintendo. The name Nintendo roughly translates from Japanese to English as leave luck to heaven. Nintendo Entertainment System 2. This was the original beta name given to the Super Nintendo. If Nintendo kept that naming system going, then the Nintendo Switch would be called the Nintendo Entertainment System 7. Game Vice lawsuit. In August 2017, a company called Game Vice attempted to sue Nintendo for stealing their patents for the Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch. Game Vice attempted to ban all further sales of the console. However, Game Vice dismissed the lawsuit in October 2017, but in March 2018 they filed another lawsuit on the Nintendo Switch, only for it to be dismissed and terminated in October 2019. Super Mario Special. This is a really obscure game that was developed for the PC and the Sharp series of computers. And well, it exists. I'm not too sure how many people know about this game, but yeah, it is a very real game, and it's not in your imagination. It's not very good either, with really weird graphics and a strange color palette, and the music sounds like it's trying so hard to be good but just falls short. But anyway, this is a game that not a lot of people know about, but it does exist and it is very real. The video game crash of 1983. In 1983, the video gaming industry crashed due to multiple reasons, but one of the main reasons is that there were a lot of really bad games that was being published for the then leading video game console, the Atari 2600, and people were beginning to move on from video games. It wasn't until Nintendo came with the Nintendo Entertainment System and their new game at the time, Super Mario Bros., that brought the video gaming industry back to life. Universal lawsuit. When Nintendo created Donkey Kong in 1981 for the arcade, they soon got a lawsuit from Universal regarding copyright infringements. They stated that the game Donkey Kong might be a trademark infringement on the Universal film King Kong. Universal ordered that Nintendo pay royalties on Donkey Kong. However, it soon found out that Universal didn't even own the rights to King Kong. In fact, Universal themselves were recently in a court case that proved that King Kong was in the public domain in order to make the 1970s remake of the King Kong film. Nintendo won the case, proving that there was no infringement on King Kong. Ultra 64. This is the former name for the Nintendo 64. Nintendo was originally going to call the Nintendo 64 the Nintendo Ultra 64, but Nintendo dropped the Ultra part of the name nearer to the N64's release. What the DS in Nintendo DS stands for. You may have wondered what the DS in Nintendo DS stands for. Well, it stands for two things. It either stands for Developer System or Dual Screen. Project names. Almost every Nintendo console has a project name before its final name is released. Some of the most popular ones include the Nintendo 64's project name, which was called Project Reality, the Nintendo GameCube's project name was Project Dolphin, the Nintendo Wii's project name was Project Revolution, the Nintendo Wii U's project name was Project Cafe, and the Nintendo Switch's project name was Project NX. Nintendo PlayStation. Believe it or not, Nintendo is actually responsible for the PlayStation's existence. But the reason why Nintendo and Sony are competitors, not allies, dates back to one of the darkest moments in video gaming history. In 1991, Sony announced that they were working with Nintendo to create a new CD-based console called the Nintendo PlayStation. However, Sony wanted to own the rights to a lot of Nintendo IPs, such as Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong and Kirby, for any games that were released on this new Nintendo PlayStation system. And Nintendo didn't really feel very comfortable with that idea. So Nintendo secretly went over to Philips, who was Sony's main competitor at the time, to work on the CD-based system instead. As a result, Sony went off on their own to create their own PlayStation system, which would then later compete with the Nintendo 64. Philips CDI. So afterwards, Nintendo licensed Philips to release some Nintendo games, and some of the games on the Philips CDI were some of the worst video games ever. Games such as Hotel Mario and Link the Faces of Evils were dramatic failures, and the actual CDI console was a big failure as well. River Twig's Bed. This is probably the creepiest song in the Mario franchise. This song is from Super Paper Mario, and if you listen to the song, it's very nerving and very unsettling, with some form of whispering or talking in it. I don't really know, but I kind of do actually like this theme, but it's no doubt creepy. Maybe because it's, the last type of song you'll expect to hear from a Mario franchise. Nintendo in 1889. Many people think that Nintendo was created in 1985 with the release of the NES, or in 1981 with the release of Donkey Kong from the arcade, or maybe even 1977 with the release of the Color Game TV. But Nintendo was actually founded all the way back in 1889. Back then they were a toy company and started off making playing cards called Hanafuda cards. When Hiroshi Yamauchi took over Nintendo in 1949, he started to try new things such as taxis, foods and vacuum cleaners, but all of those things flopped. So they started making toys, and one of the most popular toys included the Ultra Hand. But in 1977, they started to go to video games, and they stuck with video games ever since. In fact, when Nintendo released the Game Boy in 1989, it actually marks Nintendo's 100th anniversary. I know, weird to think, right? 10 NES code. One reason why the video gaming industry crashed in 1983 is because Atari, the then leading video game company at the time, had so many games coming out from third-party developers, and it was really hard to keep track of what video games were good and what video games were bad. And the bad games were outnumbering the good games. So people started to lose interest in video games. So when Nintendo brought back the video gaming industry in 1985 with the NES, they wanted to make sure that something like this won't ever happen again. So they limited third-party companies to just produce 5 games for the NES per year, so that only the 5 best games per company could be on the NES. So in order to enforce this, they put a security code on the NES called the 10 NES code. Tengen Atari. Atari hated the 10 NES code, so they wanted to crack the code and try to get around it. So Atari goes to the Copyright Office and submits a request to see the 10 NES code. They told the office that they were being sued by Nintendo, and they needed to see the code in order to fight the battle. So when they received the code, Atari sued Nintendo for $100 million and accused Nintendo of having an illegal monopoly. Atari was then able to release unlicensed Tengen cartridges for the Nintendo NES. Atari eventually lost the lawsuit and had to pay Nintendo money for stealing their copyrighted code. The Nintendo HQ was almost bombed. This happened during World War II, and this was obviously before Nintendo started making video games. And it was in the final stages of World War II, where America were fighting Japan. And in 1945, America dropped 2 atomic bombs in Japan, one in Hiroshima and one in Nagasaki, which marked Japan's surrender and ended World War II. However, Nagasaki wasn't the original location that America was going to bomb. They originally were going to bomb Kyoto, and this was where the Nintendo HQ is located. So if America bombed Kyoto instead of Nagasaki, then the Nintendo HQ would have been destroyed completely, and Nintendo, as we know it, might not exist today. Virtual Boy is fun. This is a fan-made anti-piracy screen for the failed and forgotten console, the Nintendo Virtual Boy, where it is stated that if you pirate a Nintendo Virtual Boy game, the game will cut to a screen where it says, "Why are you pirating Virtual Boy?" Then it says, "Virtual Boy is fun," and then it says, "Nintendo is fun," and then finally it says, "Don't be a pirate, okay, or else." And then it cuts to the final anti-piracy screen, which looks quite strange, honestly. Who are you running from? This is a really creepy Easter egg that is in the Nintendo Game Boy camera. The Game Boy printer has a run option, and if you select it, then you'll see some creepy faces with the words, "Who are you running from?" or "Don't be silly." I think this was meant to be a joke from Nintendo, but it turned out to be a pretty creepy Easter egg. Nintendo didn't invent the D-pad. Many people think that the D-pad was invented by Gunpei Yokoi when he created the Nintendo Game & Watch, but some people think that Nintendo didn't actually invent the D-pad at all. Rather, it was invented by Mattel when they created the Intellivision, where the circle pad on the controller used similar designs that the D-pad uses nowadays. If you like this game, buy it or die. This is another fan-made anti-piracy screen. This time it's a Pokemon game, where if you pirate the game, when you talk to someone, he will say, "If you like this game, buy it or die." KK Dirge. This is the creepiest song in Animal Crossing. And I don't really know how to describe this thing, but when you listen to it, it's such a weird song. The instruments used and the pitch of the song just makes it feel just so unnatural, and there's a constant low beat drone throughout most of the song, which makes it all the more creepier, as if someone is slowly walking towards you. And this song is especially creepy for an Animal Crossing song. Polybus. In 1981, a secret government organisation wanted to create a game that would brainwash the players that played it into becoming addicted to the game. And the game would do this by constantly having bright flashing lights that would brainwash the players. This game was going to be ported to the Nintendo Game Boy, but it got taken off the market for obvious reasons. You can no longer play as Mario. This was created as a meme by the Nintendo fan community. When Nintendo released Super Mario 3D All-Stars, it was only available for a limited time, where you can only buy the game from September 2020 to March 2021. And people started posting videos on the last day of when 3D All-Stars was available by posting YouTube videos saying things like, "You can no longer play as Mario." Nintendogs cannot die. Well, when was the last time you fed your Nintendog? It must be years. Must be dead after years of starvation, right? Well, if you grab your dusty Nintendo DS and load up Nintendogs, you'll find that they all are still alive and perfectly happy. They're just a little bit hungry after years and years of starvation. So this makes many fans to believe that Nintendogs cannot die. Nintendo is keeping Mozart alive. I don't even know what to say about this, honestly. This is hands down the weirdest entry on this iceberg, where fans have somehow come to the conclusion that Nintendo is keeping the musician Mozart alive. I don't really have anything more to say about this. I mean, don't even ask me how or why they came to this conclusion, because I generally don't know, but it's on the iceberg, so, you know. Super Mario 64 Shared Nightmares. This is probably connected to the "every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized" meme. But many people, when playing Super Mario 64, claim to have the same nightmares. One of them is the alive piano, and another one is the scary eel. But one of the weirdest ones is that people claim to have the nightmare where they see some low poly penguins from Cool Cool Mountain on top of a Kellogg's cereal box, where the penguins babble in an unintelligible language. And it warns other users to wake up if they ever have this nightmare, as they will hold the person captive in this nightmare. And finally, the last entry of this iceberg: my dad works at Nintendo. Well, the story goes like this. One day, someone said that his dad worked at Nintendo, and that's how he knew all of the upcoming content and future games and DLC that's coming out in the future. And everyone believed him. I don't know whether this is a real story or whether this is just a joke, but regardless, I still do find it pretty amusing. Whew, another iceberg video completed. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed watching that video, and if you at any point learned something new or were just amazed of any of the facts that I was telling you, then be sure to give this video a like and subscribe, if you want to see more Iceberg videos. And if you haven't already, check out my other 2 Iceberg videos. I made one that's solely based upon Mario, then I made another Iceberg on football, so go ahead and check those 2 out if you haven't done already. Thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you either learned something new or enjoyed the video at any point, and I shall see you all in 2 weeks' time. Goodbye.